My daughter-in-law texted me from Miami at 2 in the morning. "I left with your son. We're not coming back. This time I mean it." I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I just stared at the screen and smiled. I texted back 2 words. "Good luck." Then I did something I never thought I would have to do. I canceled my own son's credit cards, changed every lock on the house, and started to empty his name from my life. The next morning, when a heavy knock hammered on my front door, it wasn't him. It was the police. My name is Alara Dixon. I'm 62 years old, and until recently, I thought my biggest concern was making sure my porch plants got enough sun. I live in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina. One of those places where everyone knows your name, where you can hear the faint music of an ice cream truck on a summer afternoon, and where neighbors greet you from their lawns. My little house is modest, with cream-colored walls, a little faded by the years, but it's always been a place filled with warmth. I raised my son, Marcus, here. Here, I cried for my husband, James, when he passed from this world 8 years ago. And here, I thought I'd live the rest of my days in peace. My son Mark was always a good boy, hardworking, educated, and sweet. When he married Tasha 4 years ago, I was genuinely happy. I welcomed her like another daughter. I taught her my recipes, lent her a dress for a wedding she attended, and shared advice from woman to woman. My home was always open to them. "There's no distinction here," I told them when they moved in. "This is your home, too." In the beginning, everything was harmony. Tasha would cook, Mark sometimes helped with the errands, and in the evenings, we'd eat dinner together in front of the television, watching the same cable news and reruns I'd watched for years. But over time, something began to change. Small details, almost invisible at first. Tasha's looks were colder, her words sharper, small comments laced with venom disguised as humor. "Mrs. Dixon, you take that neat freak thing mighty seriously, don't you?" she'd say with a laugh after moving my things without permission. And Mark, my own son, didn't look at me the same way anymore. When she made a cutting remark, he would just smile. He smiled as if it were a joke, as if my hurt was mere entertainment. I tried to convince myself I was exaggerating. "It's work stress," I thought. "It's a bad day." I always found an excuse for them, because that's what mothers do. They forgive even before they are asked for forgiveness. Until that Tuesday arrived, a Tuesday like any other. Tasha and Mark left early that day. They said they were going to Atlanta with some friends just for the weekend. I didn't suspect a thing. I gave them my blessing, told them to drive safe, and returned to my chores. I spent the afternoon watering my plants, preparing a pot of stew for the evening, and listening to the gospel station. The weather was pleasant. I felt that warm breeze that announces summer is just around the corner. That night, I sat in my favorite armchair with a light throw blanket over my legs and a mug of herbal tea in my hand. The house was quiet. No shouting, no footsteps, no fake laughter. Only peace and the gentle tick of the wall clock. I thought, maybe this silence isn't so bad after all. My phone vibrated on the end table. I picked it up calmly, thinking it would be a message from a neighbor. Maybe Mark letting me know they arrived safely. When I looked at the screen, I saw Tasha's name. Below it, a photograph, and my stomach plummeted. It was her smiling in front of the ocean, the intense blue sky of Miami behind her. Beside her was Mark, a drink in his hand, and an expression I didn't recognize. He looked like a different person. Below the image was her message. "I left with your son. We're not coming back." I felt the air around me disappear. My hand trembled for a second. But then, something strange happened. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. My mind went blank, and a deep cold ran from the back of my neck to my feet. I reread every word. "I left with your son. We're not coming back." 10 words that destroyed a whole life. Then more messages came, one after another. "We're starting a new life far away from you. This house always made us feel trapped. You never really loved your son." Every line was a knife. Every word was a betrayal. I looked around the living room, the family photos, the memories, the kitchen I cleaned with such care, the dishes they had used that very morning. Everything felt like one massive lie. But instead of falling apart, I lifted my head, pressed my lips together, and replied with just 2 words. Good luck. That was it. I didn't beg, I didn't ask for explanations, I didn't show them my pain. I turned off the screen. In that exact moment, I stopped being the fragile mother, the understanding mother-in-law, the woman who always forgives. That night, something inside me woke up. I walked slowly to my small desk where I kept my important documents. I pulled out the blue folder that held the deed to this house, the utility receipts, my pension statements, the bank contracts. Everything was in my name. I had paid for it all with my life's work and my late husband's effort. Mark and Tasha had nothing, legally. Suddenly, everything was clear. If they chose to leave, I was going to choose to protect myself. I turned on the computer, logged into my online banking, and looked at every transaction with new eyes. There were the withdrawals I didn't remember making, the purchases I never authorized, the suspicious transfers to accounts I didn't know. Tasha had been robbing me, and Mark knew it. A tremor of rage ran through me, but my hands remained steady. One by one, I canceled all the additional cards. I changed passwords, I updated security alerts, then I grabbed my cell phone and searched for a number online. Locksmith, 24 hours. It was past midnight when someone answered. Hello? A sleepy voice said. I need you to come to my house right now, I replied without hesitation. I want to change all the locks. There's a problem, ma'am? Do you want me to call the police? I looked at the black screen of my phone where hours earlier Tasha had mocked me from the beach. No, I said calmly. The problem has already left, but they won't be coming back inside. I hung up. I looked one last time at the front door, the one I had opened so many times with a smile to welcome my son. That door was about to become my shield. I didn't know yet that the next morning at dawn, others would be knocking on that same door. When I ended the call with the locksmith, the silence in the house returned, but it wasn't the same silence as before. It wasn't peace or fear. It was something denser, firmer, as if the air was charged with a new kind of energy I was just beginning to understand. I walked slowly through the living room, observing everything with different eyes. That table where we had eaten so many times, the pillows arranged on the sofa, the photograph of Mark as a little boy in his school uniform, proudly holding a certificate. I stopped in front of that image. I saw him small, innocent, with that smile that made me believe everything I did was worthwhile. When did you stop being my son? I whispered. There was no answer, of course, only the ticking of the clock, which seemed to mock me, reminding me that time went on, even though my world had stopped. I returned to the desk, turned on the small lamp, and let its yellow light illuminate the disorganized papers I had started to review. I pulled out the bank statements for the last few months, one by one. I spread them out on the table, marking every suspicious movement with a red pen. There they were. Withdrawals of $300, $500, $200. Small amounts that I might not have noticed because I trusted. I trusted my son. I trusted his wife. I trusted the family I myself had built within these walls. And that trust had been my ruin. My mind began to reconstruct every past scene. The times Tasha came back from the store with bags of expensive brands I never bought, her new manicures every week, her new phone, her clothes, her perfumes. She always said a friend, a cousin, a co-worker gave them to her. I believed her. My son believed her, or maybe he chose to believe her. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, but I didn't let myself collapse into grief. That night there was no room for tears. That night was for decisions. I opened my computer, typed the name of my bank again in the search engine. I entered my username, password, security code. The system took a few seconds to open. They seemed endless. When the screen finally showed my transactions, everything was confirmed. The additional cards were in Mark and Tasha's names. They were linked to my account, funded by my pension, and the small savings I kept for emergencies. My hand hovered over the mouse. I clicked. Cancel, additional card, Marcus Dixon. Confirm. Cancel additional card, Tasha Monroe. Confirm. A message popped up. This action is irreversible. Yes, I murmured as I clicked one last time. It was irreversible, just like their decision to abandon me. Once the cards were canceled, I changed the access code. Then I changed it again. I activated an additional verification, something my nephew had once recommended to me just in case. And then I did something I never imagined having to do. I moved a portion of my money to a secondary account that I had almost forgotten, created years ago on the advice of a bank teller for any major emergency. This was the emergency. I took a deep breath. For the first time all night, I felt something close to control. My phone vibrated again. This time, it was desperate messages, one after another. What did you do with the cards? I can't pay for anything, old woman. Answer me. I recognized Tasha's aggressive writing style. She didn't even bother to hide her contempt for me, as if now, being far away, she believed she held the power. I watched those words without responding. I felt a slight, involuntary smile on my lips. It wasn't joy, it was something darker, colder, a silent justice. It was then I heard the sound of an engine outside my house. I peeked through the window and saw a white pickup truck park in front of the gate. A robust man with a mustache and a cap got out, carrying a toolbox, the locksmith. I opened the door without fear. He looked me up and down, perhaps trying to understand the urgency of this older black woman who had called him after midnight. Is this the place, ma'am? Yes, I replied. All the locks, the front door, the patio door, and the back door. And where is the other person who lives here? He asked cautiously. I looked him straight in the eye without flinching. He doesn't live here anymore. He asked no more questions. As he worked, the metallic sound of the drill broke the silence of the early morning. Every screw, every turn of the new key sounded like a promise, a seal, a definitive barrier between my past and my immediate future. I used that time to start gathering their things. I entered the room they shared. I opened the closet without the delicacy I once had. I took Mark's shirts, his shoes, his pants, his old denim jacket, everything I recognized as his. Then I moved to Tasha's things, tight dresses, flashy blouses, makeup, fake designer bags. I picked them up one by one, without elegance, without nostalgia. I just piled them up in the hallway in front of the door. Every garment was an empty memory, every object a lie. When I finished, the hallway looked like a makeshift storage unit, mountains of clothes, bags, boxes, shoes, everything they once considered their world reduced to a heap on the cold floor. The locksmith finished his work almost 2 hours later. He tested the new keys, checked the firmness of the door, and made a final adjustment to the deadbolt. All set, ma'am. Nobody gets in here without this set of keys, he said, handing them to me. I held them, feeling their weight. More than metal, they were freedom. I paid him, and before he left, he added in a low voice, "Take care of yourself." I nodded silently. When the door closed behind him, I was alone again. But now, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel helpless. I felt protected by myself. I went up to my room, sat on the bed, and looked at the empty side where Mark used to sleep, where his breathing accompanied me on silent nights, where I thought he would always be. And then, without tears, without lament, with a calm I didn't know I possessed, I lay down. I closed my eyes. The exhaustion wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. Before drifting off, a thought pushed its way into my mind, clear and unsettling. They don't know the strength of a mother when she stops being afraid. And without knowing it, I knew that everything would escalate even more at dawn, because somewhere far from here, Tasha and my own son had already taken the next step. And that morning, the police were about to knock on my door. I woke up to a hard bang against the door. It wasn't a gentle or timid knock. It was an authoritative, repeated blow, as if they wanted to tear the wood with each impact. My eyes snapped open. For a second, I didn't know what day it was or where I was, but then I remembered everything. The message from Miami, the canceled cards, the new locks. Everything came rushing back like an avalanche. I sat up in bed and looked at the clock. 8 in the morning. They knocked again. "Ma'am, open the door, please." The voice was firm, masculine, and professional. I got up calmly, put on a light robe, and walked slowly toward the entrance. Each step was sure. I didn't feel fear. It was a strange mix of dignity and fatigue, as if deep down I had accepted that this was just another chapter in the same disaster. I looked through the peephole. 2 police officers stood outside, one younger, with a serious face, the other older, with a gray mustache and watchful eyes that seemed to have seen too many stories like mine. I took a deep breath and opened the door just a crack, leaving the security chain latched. "Good morning, officers," I said calmly. "How can I help you?" The older one spoke first. "Are you Ms. Elara Dixon?" "Yes, I am." "We received a report from your son, Marcus Dixon, and his wife, Tasha Monroe. They claim you illegally changed the locks on their home, blocked their credit cards, and kept money that doesn't belong to you." I listened without changing my expression. I didn't raise an eyebrow or show any sign of surprise. "May we step inside, ma'am?" the younger officer then asked. "Of course," I replied, unlatching the chain and opening the door completely. "Come in." Both entered and discreetly looked around, assessing the scene. They saw the pile of clothes and belongings stacked in the hallway. They didn't touch anything. "All of that is theirs," I clarified. "I put it there so they can collect it when they come, if they choose to do so civilly." The older officer nodded slightly. "Could you explain your side of the story, ma'am?" I invited them to sit at the small dining table. I went to the kitchen and poured coffee. My hands weren't trembling. It was unbelievable. It was as if all the shaking had stayed in the past. "Look, officers," I began when I returned. "The house where we are now is mine. It has been in my name for over 20 years. I bought it with my husband, may he rest in peace, long before my son got married. Here are the deeds." I fetched the blue folder and opened it in front of them. The paper was aged but clear, legible. Mark and his wife lived here by my choice, not by legal right. They were never on the deed, they were just guests. Family, yes, but guests in the end. The younger officer carefully scanned the documents, while the older one watched me in silence. "So, why does your son say you changed the locks on his own house?" I couldn't help a faint, bitter smile. "Because last night, I received this message." I took my phone and showed them the screen. There was the photo. Tasha smiling from Miami, Mark next to her with a drink in his hand, and the text clear as day. "I left with your son. We're not coming back." Both officers leaned in to read better. "After that," I continued, "insulting messages started coming in, and I also discovered that for months they had been using my money without permission. They were additional cards linked to my account. I only canceled what was mine." The older officer slowly looked up. "Do you have proof of those transactions?" I got up again and retrieved the bank statements I had marked on the desk. I laid them in front of him, pointing at the figures with my finger. "It's all here. Every withdrawal, every purchase. I wasn't at those stores. I didn't go to those restaurants. They did this while I thought it was grocery money." A heavy silence fell. The younger officer looked at the other uncomfortably. "Then, ma'am," he said, "legally, you have every right to cancel those cards." "I know. And you also have the right to change the locks if the property is yours," the older one added. "I know that too," I replied. "But they think they can do whatever they want with me, just because I'm their mother, just because I'm an older woman. That stops now." There was a moment of respect in the silence. Then, the older officer's radio began to crackle. "Unit 1-4, what's the situation at the reported address?" The officer picked up the mic without taking his eyes off me. "No crime in progress here. The residence belongs to the lady. Complainants have no legal rights to the property. We will not force entry." An agitated voice started coming from the other end of the line. I immediately recognized the tone, even without seeing the face. Mark. "It's a lie. It's my house. She's robbing me. You have to go in now." The officer sighed. "Mr. Dixon, calm down. Your mother has presented legal documents establishing that you are not the owner. This is a civil matter, not a criminal one. I suggest you contact an attorney." There was a choked cry, full of rage, and then the transmission cut off. The younger officer shook his head. "I'm very sorry, ma'am," he murmured. "Not all children know how to respect." I looked at him squarely. "I know." The officers took notes. They wrote a small report in their notebook. The older one finally said, "As a precaution, we suggest you have no direct contact with them for now. If they try to force entry, call us back. You are within your rights." "Thank you," I replied. "And don't worry, I don't plan on opening that door for anyone who doesn't deserve to cross it." They stood up to leave. Before walking out, the younger one couldn't hide a look of astonishment. "You're much stronger than many people believe, ma'am." I nodded slightly. "I'm just a mother who stopped letting herself be hurt." Just as the patrol car started to disappear down the street, I saw a taxi pull over further up. Mark and Tasha stepped out of the left side. Their faces were pale, tense, consumed by anger and humiliation. I knew in my heart this was not the end. It was barely the beginning. And as they approached my house again, I understood that the hardest part was yet to come. I watched them get out of the taxi as if I were watching a scene I already knew. Mark came out first, his shirt wrinkled and his eyes swollen. Behind him came Tasha, her hair messy, but her chin held high. Then Tasha's mother, Mrs. Rhonda Monroe, and my sister Tessa Jenkins appeared. They came in a line, like a small jury ready to pass judgment in front of my door. They approached murmuring. I managed to hear words like pension and poor Mark. I stood in the middle of the living room, upright, with my hands clasped. I wasn't going to hide. The knocks were sharp. "Elara!" Tessa shouted. "Open up!" Then Mark's voice. "Mom, open the door!" I took a deep breath. I walked and opened the door halfway without putting the chain on. I stood firm in the frame. "Good morning," I said. The four of them stood facing me. Mark was full of rage and shame, Tasha with contempt. Mrs. Monroe had her arms crossed, and Tessa wore a severe expression. "Well," Tasha sneered, "you left us without a dime in Miami. Does that feel like a good morning?" "You wrote that you were leaving with my son and weren't coming back," I replied. "I just took your message seriously." Mark clenched his fists. "Mom, don't exaggerate. Those cards were ours too. We lived here. You can't do this to us." "Mark," I said slowly, "the account is in my name. The house is in my name. You lived here because I wanted you to, not because you had a right to. You were guests." Tessa intervened, putting a hand on Mark's shoulder. "Elara, they're young. They made a mistake. But they're your family. Was it necessary to go this far?" Mrs. Monroe stepped forward. "I always knew you were controlling," she said. "You won't let your son grow up. Tasha told me you even check what he spends every dollar on." "If you felt so bad nobody forced you to stay," I countered. "Funny how you never left while you could use my cards." I pointed to the pile of boxes and bags in the hallway. "There are your things. You have 1 hour to take them. After that, whatever is left, I'm donating it." "Are you kicking us out?" Tasha asked. "You left first," I replied. "I'm just tidying up the house you abandoned over a text message." Mark lowered his gaze for a second, then raised it stubbornly. "None of this would have happened if you weren't so controlling," he said. "You have your pension. You don't need that much. Sharing won't kill you." His words hurt more than the message from Miami. "What kills me," I replied, "is that you think everything I worked for is worth less than your whim to start something new with my money." I let them into the hallway only. Watching them carry their own belongings was strange. Boxes of clothes, a television, a bag full of shoes. None of them thanked me that everything was neatly folded. They walked past me without looking. On one of those trips, Tessa approached. "I'm telling you for your own good," she whispered. "You're going to end up alone. People talk." "People always talk," I replied. "But when you needed a place to stay, I opened my door. When Mom got sick, I quit my job. Now that I set a boundary, I'm the bad one." Tessa sighed and stepped away. When everything was packed into the waiting taxi, Tasha came back to the door. "I hope one day you understand what it's like to have nothing left," she said. "We'll see who takes care of you when you can't even manage the stairs." I looked at her. "Today, I'm left without a son in this house," I replied. "But you are losing your integrity, and that comes with a much higher price." Mark approached from behind, not daring to meet my gaze. "Goodbye, Mom," he mumbled. I didn't know if it was a real goodbye or just a quick exit. I didn't answer. I closed the door when the taxi disappeared down the street. The silence after the door latch clicked was like a physical blow. I leaned against the wood for a few seconds, feeling my body go slack. I walked to the living room and sank into the armchair. The house was suddenly too big. I looked around. There were no bags dropped on the floor, no shoes by the entrance, no dirty glasses on the table. Everything was in order, and yet it felt empty. That was the first time since everything started that I truly cried. I didn't shout. I didn't complain. I just covered my face with my hands and let it all out. The disappointment, the sadness, the exhaustion. I cried for the boy Mark used to be, for the man he became, and for the Alara who forgot herself for years. When I had no more tears left, an emptiness remained. I got up almost by inertia, put coffee on to brew, and ate a slice of bread and nothing else. The phone rang several times. I didn't answer. I didn't want to explain anything. The next 2 days passed in automatic movements, sweeping the porch, washing clothes, watering the plants. Every time I passed the room where they slept, I closed the door harder. I worked with my hands so I wouldn't think with my head. One afternoon, when the sun was setting and the orange light streamed through the window, someone knocked. 3 soft taps, very different from the police or Mark's knocks. I opened it. It was Ms. Gloria, my neighbor, with a slice of sweet potato pie wrapped in a floral napkin. Behind her stood her granddaughter, Chloe, with her phone in her hand and a frown on her face. "Mrs. Dixon," Ms. Gloria said, "I brought you some pie, the kind you like." "And well, Chloe wanted to show you something." The girl held up her phone. On the screen, I immediately recognized Mark and Tasha's faces, embracing and smiling. Below the photo was a long text. The title read, "My Truth, How My Own Mother Kicked Us to the Curb." I felt a different kind of cold, not in my body, but in my soul. What had started in my living room was now across the whole neighborhood and soon all over the internet. Chloe's phone was still held up in front of me. The photo of Mark and Tasha filled the bright screen, well edited, as if their smiles could erase everything they had done to me. Below, that long text began with words I never thought I'd read together. "My truth, how my own mother kicked us to the curb." "Look what they're saying, Auntie," Chloe said, handing me the phone. "They're making you look like a monster." I read, eyes clouded, but attentive to every word. Tasha had written entire paragraphs calling me controlling, cold, and abusive. She claimed I had humiliated them, changed the locks without warning, and left them penniless while they were only trying to start a new life together. Mark had shared the post a few minutes later. His message was shorter, but no less cruel. Sometimes the person who gives you life is also the one who takes it away. Thanks to my wife, I understood true love. I felt a pressure in my chest, as if someone was placing a huge stone on my heart. "How could he write that?" I whispered. "I carried him, I fed him, I worked extra shifts to buy him his school books." Ms. Gloria took my hand. "They are blinded by rage and shame," she said. "But you can't let this continue." Chloe quickly swiped the screen. "It's not just that, Auntie. Their friends are commenting, sharing. Look, this one says you're a crazy old lady who doesn't want to let go of the money, and this one says they should take away your pension." I felt the rage that I had kept at bay for days begin to ignite again, not as an explosion, but as a slow fire that burned more strongly than tears. They want to paint me as the villain in a story I didn't write, I said in a low voice. Chloe nodded. Exactly. And that's why we can't respond with words. Words are just air. We need facts. I looked at her, surprised. And what can we do? She took a deep breath. Remember the messages they sent you, Auntie? Those times Tasha bragged about things you didn't buy her, the weird withdrawals. All of that is recorded on social media and at the bank. We just need to bring it to light. The idea resonated deep in my bones. But I don't know how to do that. I do, she replied confidently. And you trust me, right? I nodded without hesitation. The three of us sat at the dining table. Chloe connected her laptop and began explaining things step by step that sounded complicated, but which she made seem simple. First, we're going to download a backup copy of your text messages, she said. That holds all the messages they sent you at some point. And then we'll check Facebook because even if they deleted something, there's always a trace. Watching her work was like observing a surgeon. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard, opening folders, searching for dates, names, keywords. I watched her with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Here, she suddenly said, turning the computer toward me. Look at this message from Tasha 6 months ago. I read aloud with difficulty. Your mom doesn't even notice when I take money. Little by little, we're saving up to get away from here. And this one, Chloe added. This is from Mark 2 weeks later. Another message. As long as she keeps my card active, she can do what she wants. She doesn't need all that much anyway. It was as if they were forcing me to see my own betrayal repeated on the screen. I can't believe it, I murmured. Well, believe this, Auntie, Chloe said, opening another folder. Look at these bank statements that I helped you download. Printed on the screen were dates, times, places, amounts, withdrawals at ATMs near his work, purchases at expensive restaurants, hotel payments. Everything matched the days Tasha told me she was going to see a friend or working late. This isn't just a lie, Chloe continued. This is financial abuse against an older adult, and it's a crime. Her words rang like a bell inside me. Besides, she added seriously, there are laws that protect you, Auntie. You have rights, even if they want to paint you as a useless old woman. I remained silent for a few seconds. Then I lifted my head. What do we do now? Chloe closed the laptop gently. Now, we are not going to fight like them. Now we are going to show the truth. Only the truth. She took out her cell phone and started taking screenshots. The messages, the amounts, the dates, the photos. Everything perfectly organized. We are not going to write insults, she explained. We are not going to argue. We are going to create an album and give it a simple name. Just the facts. I looked at her, surprised by that calmness, so similar to the one I had felt the night of the Miami message. And what do I write in it? I asked. Chloe thought for a few seconds. Just one sentence. I won't argue with anyone. Here are the dates and the amounts. Nothing else. I stared at those words. Nothing else. There were no shouts, no long explanations, just evidence. That same night, we published the album. Every image, every bank statement, every message with hour and date, one after another, unadorned, emotionless, just reality. I closed the computer. My phone started vibrating minutes later, again and again, messages, notifications, calls. I didn't open anything. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was happening throughout the neighborhood, the entire family, on all those screens they had used to attack me. The truth had come to light, and this time, they couldn't erase it. When I finally looked at my phone, hours later, there was a new message. It wasn't from Mark. It wasn't from Tasha. It was from a woman whose name I didn't know. I am an attorney. I work with cases of elder abuse. If you would like free consultation, contact me. I read her full name, Attorney Jasmine Carter. A slow, sad smile crossed my face. That ordinary Tuesday had turned into a battle, and I had just found my ally for the next round. In that moment, I knew we would soon see each other again in a place where no one could lie. The courthouse. 3 days after posting the Just the Facts album, my life took another turn. This time it wasn't a text, nor an aggressive call, nor a bang on the door. It was a manila envelope slipped under my heavy metal gate, official, cold as a sentence. I picked it up with firm hands. They no longer trembled as before. In the upper left corner, Family Court Division was clearly printed. It arrived, I murmured to myself. I went into the house, sat at the dining table, opened the envelope with a small knife, and silently read the citation. Mark and Tasha had filed a formal complaint against me for misuse of shared assets, breach of trust, and emotional distress. Emotional distress. That word brought a bitter smile to my face. What irony, I murmured. My phone vibrated seconds later. It was an unknown number. Ms. Elara Dixon? Asked a firm but kind voice. Yes, who is speaking? Attorney Jasmine Carter. I wrote to you after seeing your post. I wanted to get ahead of this. I've already received a copy of the lawsuit they filed against you. If you agree, I would like to represent you, at no cost. I closed my eyes. For the first time in days, I felt genuine relief. I accept, I replied without hesitation. Tell me, what do I have to do? 2 days later, I walked beside Jasmine up the cold stairs of the courthouse. She was younger than I imagined, but she walked with an assurance that commanded respect. She carried a thick folder under her arm and a contagious calm on her face. Don't worry, Ms. Elara, she told me. Everything they did is legally, emotionally, and morally wrong. They always believe I'm the one who is wrong, I replied, since Mark was a boy. That is going to end today, she affirmed. We entered the hearing room. They were already there. Mark and Tasha. They looked different, thinner, tenser, less in love. Mark didn't look at me. Tasha did, with false pride in her eyes. Beside them was their lawyer, a young man, a shiny suit, an actor's smile, pure appearance. Behind them were my sister Tessa and Mrs. Monroe, watching me as if I were the problem with the world. I sat at the opposite table next to Jasmine. On the wood rested our folder with my documents, my evidence, my history turned into legal truth. The judge, a man with gray hair and a serious face, entered the room. Let's begin, he said. Mark's lawyer took the floor first. He spoke of maternal ingratitude, lack of understanding, and excessive authority. He painted Mark as a victim, Tasha as an innocent young woman, and me as a resentful old woman who didn't want to release control. As I listened, I understood something important. He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about a woman they had invented. When he finished, Jasmine stood up. With your permission, Your Honor. Her voice was clear as a bell. This hearing is not about hurt feelings, she continued. It's about facts. What we will demonstrate today is a clear case of financial abuse against an older adult. She turned to the screen at the front. I request permission to present the digital evidence. The judge nodded. The lights dimmed slightly, and the first image appeared on the screen. Tasha's message from Miami. I left with your son. We're not coming back. Then the mocking messages, then the bank statements, then the dates, one after another. In the room, all that could be heard was the soft sound of the projector and the tense breathing of those present. I could see Mark's face change color, Tasha clenching her purse, Tessa lowering her gaze. Jasmine read aloud, As long as she keeps my card active, she can do what she wants. She doesn't need all that much anyway. Message sent by Marcus Dixon, Your Honor. Mark closed his eyes. Little by little, we're saving up to get away from here. Message sent by Tasha Monroe. The judge slowly raised his gaze toward them. Do you deny sending these messages? He asked. The lawyer tried to intervene, but Mark was quicker. No, Your Honor, he said in a muffled voice. A thick silence fell in the room. Then you admit that you used your mother's money without her consent to finance your trip to Miami and your supposed new beginning, the judge continued. Mark nodded. Tasha started to cry softly, dramatizing as always. I admit I did, Your Honor, she whispered, but I didn't think it would go this far. Jasmine took advantage of the moment. It went so far that we are here today, she replied, and it went so far that Ms. Elara not only protected her home but her dignity. There were murmurs among the people present. The judge took notes for several minutes. Then he lifted his pen. It is established, he finally said, that the defendant is, in fact, the victim. In this case, the house is her property. The money belongs to her. The cards were used without permission. The court declares the lawsuit filed by Mr. Marcus Dixon and Ms. Tasha Monroe to be unfounded. My heart gave a silent leap. Furthermore, he added, a temporary restraining order will be issued. Neither of the two may approach Ms. Elara Dixon, her residence, or have contact by any means, while the investigation into financial abuse continues. He turned to look at me. Ma'am, you have been very patient. The law is on your side. I felt the air rush back into my lungs. Mark lowered his head. Tasha was sobbing. Tessa quickly got up, ashamed. Mrs. Monroe left without saying goodbye, and I just closed my eyes, not for victory, but for peace. Leaving the courthouse, Jasmine placed a hand on my shoulder. This doesn't end here, she said. But today we took the most important step. You got your voice back. I looked at her. No, I corrected with a soft smile. I got something better. My place in this world. That night, returning home, I locked the door with my new keys. I walked through the living room in silence. I looked at my plants, my photos, my walls. The house no longer felt empty. It felt mine. But something deep in my chest told me that one last chapter was missing. One where not only one door would close, but another would open. The day after the ruling, I woke up without a start. That, for me, was already a small victory. There were no knocks on the door, no messages loaded with venom, no murmurs outside the house, only the song of the birds in the backyard tree and the warm light filtering through the kitchen window. I brewed coffee slowly, as if every movement were a small ritual. The boiling water, the aroma of ground coffee, the steam drawing invisible shapes in the air. For the first time in a long time, I felt no rush. I didn't feel like I had to prove anything, explain anything to anyone, or justify any decision. I just existed, and that was enough. I looked around the house with different eyes. I no longer saw the space where Mark used to leave his shoes lying around, nor the wall where Tasha hung photos that meant nothing to me. Now I saw a blank canvas, a space where I could start over on my own terms, without anyone's permission. That same day, I called the notary. I want to change my will, I told him firmly. There was no doubt in my voice. I wanted to make sure that the little or a lot that I had was destined by decisions made calmly, not under pressure, guilt, or fear. If I had learned anything from this whole story, it was that no one should rely on your sacrifice as if it were an eternal obligation. Hanging up the phone, I felt a strange lightness, as if I had taken off an invisible weight that I had carried on my shoulders for years. In the afternoon, Ms. Gloria knocked on the door once more with those soft little taps. Mrs. Dixon, can I come in for a minute? I smiled. Of course. She entered with her usual smile and a small package wrapped in colored paper. I brought you a little candle for the Lord, she said. Sometimes we don't know why things happen, but we should always be grateful that they keep happening. I hugged her without words, grateful not only for the candle, but for the friendship, the companionship, the affection that cannot be bought or demanded. After she left, I lit the small candle in a quiet corner of the living room. I didn't ask for anything. I just gave thanks. Thanks for having woken up, for having resisted, for having chosen to choose myself this time. The days began to flow differently. I returned to my routine of going to the market, tending my plants, reading in the afternoons, and sitting on the porch with a cup of tea. People started greeting me with more respect. Some neighbors who had remained silent now gave me looks of admiration, even pride. And as for Mark, I never heard anything more. He didn't call, he didn't write, he didn't show up. Better that way, because there are wounds that don't need to be reopened, even if they ache. One Sunday, while I was sweeping the sidewalk in front of my house, a boy on a bicycle stopped in front of me. "Ma'am, are you the one who was on the internet?" he asked with innocent curiosity. "Maybe," I replied, smiling. "Is that good or bad? My mom said you're brave," he answered. That simple, pure comment touched me more than all the apologies I never received. That night, as I settled into bed, I thought about everything that had happened since that message from Miami. The pain, the humiliation, the surprise, the rage, but also the strength, the clarity, the resurgence. I understood something profound. Sometimes they don't break you to destroy you. They break you so that you can discover what you are made of. The story didn't leave me empty. It left me free. Free from guilt that wasn't mine, free from carrying those who didn't respect me, free to start over, even if I was alone. And as I closed my eyes, I felt a peace in my chest that no one had ever been able to give me, and no one would ever be able to take away. If this story touched your heart, if you have ever felt that your own family has failed you, I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment below and tell me what city you are listening from. Your story matters too. Your voice counts too. If you want to keep following me and more stories of strength, dignity, and second chances, subscribe to the channel and don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. Every day we share stories that remind us that it is always possible to start over. Thank you for listening to me and for staying with me until the end.